Today we are presenting to Thrill Amusement Park, the training program for all the managers and operational ride managers. Currently, we are the Human Resource Development team at Thrill Amusement Park, including myself, the General Manager, Alexander, the Training Manager, and Kevin, the Operational Manager, who will all be presenting today. Last summer, 450 people were employed. 100 of those were summer casuals. Because of the poor training, there are a lot of communication issues occurring across the park. A lot of the staff did not know the correct codes and conduct on the radio. Therefore, when emergencies occurred or information needed to travel across the park to the correct people on the radio, it wasn't effectively happening. This created a lot of issues over the summer, and a lot of customers were dissatisfied with some of the service. To ensure this doesn't happen, we have made an extensive training program and needs analysis to prevent these issues from occurring this summer.
Thank you, Nina, for the introduction. I'll now move on to discuss our training needs analysis. So our training needs analysis enabled us to identify the gap in staff training or related training needs. So firstly, we identified symptoms and causes. We found that other staff using the radio channel when you were trying to use the radio channel, decreases in guest satisfaction, increases in confusion in and around radio transmissions, increase in lost property items that were never found, and new staff just lacking the basic radio skills. After this, we planned our data gathering techniques. We decided we were going to look at and create a job description, conduct a task analysis, I'll talk about that one a little bit later on, analyzing our operating problems, observe on the job, review our current training standards, and interview staff. So we collected this data, and we did collect it through creating a job description, the analyzing of operating problems, and on-the-job observations. Now, with the on-the-job observations, we placed ourselves in the situation and we actually watched the staff and how they conducted themselves within certain situations. We did review our current training standards, and we conducted a task analysis, and we did the interviews with the staff. We did interviews with 3 staff, and we found that they failed to communicate precisely, they struggled to use the radio, and they couldn't remember what codes to use in what situation. The 3 employees that we interviewed, the first one was Luke. His situation was he encountered a disgruntled guest. Now, this disgruntled guest picked up the gate at that ride and threw it at him. Now, he was scared, so we jumped onto the radio and yelled over the radio. Now, this frightened all the guests around him, but also all the guests around any other ride operator because they could also hear. The next employee was Laura. Laura was trying to get in contact with Zach to get a pair of keys for her ride. It had just been a shift change and she didn't have any. However, she was on the wrong radio channel, so Zach couldn't hear her. The last employee we interviewed was Mike. Now, Mike was trying to get in contact with Laura from the animal park. A guest had come up to him saying that he had lost his wallet in the animal park and see if anyone could help him find it. But before Laura could go find it, a guest had already found it and taken it because they could hear these encounters between the staff. After this, we moved on to analysing and interpreting our data. We found that staff were having trouble conveying messages via the radio. Now, this was mainly due to the large number of codes for different situations, communication interruptions, being unable to describe situations precisely, and just new staff being confused about how to use the radio. When we were analysing and interpreting the data, we found both deficiency needs and analytic needs. Now, we reported our results and suggested some solutions. Some of the possible solutions included using real-life scenario training. So this is where a group of employees would head over to a ride. One of the employees would run the ride at a time, and the rest would act as guests. Now, one of these guests per cycle of the ride would be given a little cue card, and that cue card would say a little scenario. So it could be something about being scared to go on the ride, not listening to the instructions, or even trying to exit the ride. So this enabled staff to put in a safe place where they could practice real life scenarios. We also came up with specific radio training on transmitting and interpreting messages, reducing the number of codes altogether as we found that there were many codes that were similar for similar situations, and increasing the number of radio channels. Now, I'll go on to talk about our task analysis that we conducted. So firstly, we developed an overall job description. This is where we came up with the main responsibilities that were the safe operation of the rides as company practices and policies, ensuring high guest satisfaction and assisting in any emergency situations. Some of the key qualifications were applying first aid and a working with children's check. Although the working with children's check is not required by law, it is highly recommended. Some of the key skills needed were good interpersonal skills and key the ability to follow complex instructions. We then created and established a task identification, which we did two, one for the rides and one for radio communications. For the rides, it was just basically opening the gate, checking the harnesses, making sure the ride's running properly with the guests on it. In terms of the radio, it's more grab the radio, ensure you're on the appropriate channel, hold down the talk button, communicate clearly and appropriately, and wait for a response. After this, we identified what the key knowledge, abilities, and skills are. So some of the key knowledge required for the job are customer and personal service, English language, and public safety. Some of the abilities were speaking clearly, oral comprehension, and oral expression. And some of the skills were speaking and active listening. Next, we identified areas that could benefit from training. So we came up with radio communication, stress management, oral comprehension, customer service, and oral expression. After which we prioritize these. Now we prioritize these based on the return on investment, and we did interview some employees asking which one of these they would like to train and what was the key one they wanted. So, and we came up with radio communication as number one, oral expression, stress management, oral comprehension, and customer service. I will now pass on to Nina.
The training objective of the tasks that we will be implementing at Thrill Amusement Park is to teach the staff effective and strategic communication skills on the radio. The learning objectives that will be completed during the tasks will be to apply customer service, speak with clarity on the radio, create active listening, and get crucial information and inspect equipment efficiently and effectively on the radio. The 3 tasks that we have designed to ensure there are no miscommunication issues over the summer are the listen and draw activity, which will be held in a meeting room and will take about 1.5 hours to complete. This is an incidental type of training, so therefore it's a different natural learning objective. So it's not actually tasks that they will need to learn that they'll need on the job, whereas it's a task that it can be applied to the learning objectives that is a bit more fun and engaging. It involves everyone being paired up in twos, and one of them is given the task as the drawer and the other as a communicator. Via the radio, one of them will be communicating what they have to the other, what they have to draw, without giving away exactly what it is. For example, giving them directions on where to draw on the piece of paper, the shape of the drawing, the shape of the what the actual final image is. This is a great way to create a slow communication that is well thought and engaged, so that the other drawer can understand what to draw on the page, which links back to the learning objectives. The other 2 tasks that we have designed are the act and speak, which will be held at the rides. It'll be 2 hours and it'll be informal on the job training. So therefore it's support coaching session and it's away from the classroom. Basically what it is acting out scenarios and people responding to the scenarios on the radio. For example, if a kid was to fall off a ride, or if there was an emergency and when someone was being harassed, and how to respond and who they will need to ask to come and help in that certain situation. And then lastly, the Kahoot quiz, which is held in a meeting room with a projector. That's a formal on-the-job training, so it's a more a traditional style of learning. It's writing and reflecting and a quiz that'll be on Kahoot. Considerations to have are gender, culture, age, and learning styles while training on these 3 tasks. The learning styles to consider are the activist, which is an experienced type of learner, the reflector, which is an observer and a thinker type of learner, a theorist, which is a learner who likes to review and learn theory, and then the pragmatists, which like real experience and applied learning. It's important as a trainer to always reflect and get feedback and surveys while at the training. So for example, at lunch, you could get a survey out and ask people on what they can improve on as a trainer. So as a manager, you can do that so that you can adjust to people's differences in learning. For example, if someone was of an older age and they didn't like standing up in the sun and were getting sunburnt at the act and speak, therefore you could ask or give them alternatives where they can stand in the shade and they can act from there. Pedagogy and andragogy is an important frame to consider as well. So pedagogy is a type of style of teaching. So pedagogy is teaching as a teacher. So they look up to you or you teach down to them. So it's a different style, whereas andragogy is more of a group style learning. So what you want to do is combine both. When you tell them about the task and when they're listening to you before they start the task, it's important to have a pedagogy style, whereas andragogy, it's important to encourage group learning and learning off one another. The reinforcement theory and conditioning framework has also been applied to all three. This is the type of learning where trainees and trainers one another, they respond, so you give them the stimulus to respond to, which is the training task, and then the behaviour is how the trainee will respond to the stimuli. And then as a trainer, it's important to give them a reward or a punishment that follows, so they know how, if they're doing the right thing and if they need to adjust how they're doing the task and how they can do it that better. So giving them positive reinforcement, negative feedback, giving them, engaging with them and asking how they can improve it, so that you evoke their behaviour to think in a different way or perform the task in a different way. The materials needed for the tasks involve pen and paper, 2 radios, task descriptions and scenario descriptions, manuals on how to run the tasks. They will also need their radio to speak on. And then for the Kahoot quiz, it's a little bit different because it's sit down. So they'll need internet access for the Kahoot quiz. They'll need their phone or laptop, so encourage them to bring that on the day. And they'll also need some pens as well for that to do their group reflections. And then a $100 gift voucher will be needed for the person who wins the quiz for their incentive. And it's also important that if they do have any issues throughout the day, it's important to ask if anyone needs anything. For example, if they need sunscreen, it's important to have emergency kits and things like that in case an emergency comes along. We will obviously be providing you the scenario descriptions and the task descriptions, and we'll also be designing the Kahoot for you to use. Listen and draw, training, plan and conduct. So basically, as I said before, everyone will be paired up and there'll be a debrief. One will be given the drawing, one will be given the speaking task, so they'll be given the description of what to draw. There'll be a practice round of potentially something quite simple like a flower, and then once they understand the rules and how it runs, then they'll do the actual round. So for example, it might be a house, or it might be a piece of furniture, or a more complex animal like an elephant. Once they've completed the drawings, the pair will have to come back together, and then they'll look at the drawing and they'll reflect on whether it looks exactly what the task was. So whether it was looks like the house or it looks like the elephant, and then they'll reflect on how they could have improved their communication to actually achieve the drawing. It's quite interesting to see. People will be completely different to what the description of the image is, or people will be right on their money. So usually the ones who are right on the money with drawing exactly what they just explained are quite good, effective communicators. And then obviously there'll be short-term and long-term evaluations analysing if the training is effective, which Kevin will delve into later on, and that'll be for all 3 activities. Speak and act will be the same, so there'll be scenarios, they'll be given descriptions, and then they'll just have to act out the scenario and then speak on the radio in a pair situation on the job. And then the Kahoot quiz, it'll be involve the Kahoot, it'll be put up on the projector, and then everyone will log on with their code for the Kahoot quiz, and everyone will compete in the quiz. And then the reflection questions, everyone will be put into groups. So every pair there'll be 4 pairs in each group, so that's 8 people, and then everyone will sit at their individual group tables and they'll complete the questions as a group and reflect. And then there'll be every group will present at the end on their reflections from the trainings. This is an example of a house for the listen and draw activity. So it's quite straightforward. It's black and white. You can, as an example, you can say to all the staff, you can use instructions like in the top left-hand corner or the top right-hand corner or the bottom left-hand corner, or exactly in the middle, draw a rectangle, and then on the left-hand side of the rectangle, draw a circle. So you can encourage them on how to communicate, because it can be difficult for some people starting off.
Thank you, Nina, for providing those details. I'll now be adding on to that and giving a bit of an overview into the implementation of our training program. So the staff to be trained will be the rides and water park operators, and this is approximately 50 staff members, and they'll be trained by the team leaders. And we're hoping to have 3 team leaders carry out the day, as we believe that will be sufficient to handle the 50 staff members. And the training program will take place on site. We'll have a designated work area set up for these activities, and we're also saving on costs by not finding alternate venues. In terms of the length of the program, it will be 1 day of activities, so 6 hours to complete all the tasks involved. And we're doing this because we don't want to overload the staff with too much information and allow them to process things throughout the day. And we're expecting to hold the training programs prior to the commencement of the busy summer period. So the summer period, the theme park is open 7 days a week. So we want to ensure our staff are ready and prepared in terms of their speaking and listening skills, as well as their radio communication and efficiency in acting in a team. We've also conducted a return on investment. So we've done this to confirm that the training program is worthwhile and that there is significant benefit in running it to see a profit for the company. Based on our assessments, we determined that the training cost will be approximately $12,000. And from what the staff will learn through the training program, they'll be much more efficient in running the rides, meaning the rides can run 4 times quicker per hour. And this will be increasing the revenue from the rides across the 11 rides that we have. And we've determined a return on investment value of 6.92, suggesting that we're in good stead to carry out this training program and find effective results. So the next stage of the training needs analysis is to evaluate the training program. And we'll be doing this based on Kirkpatrick's 4 levels of training evaluation. So reaction, learning, behavior, and results. And as well as this, we also want to keep in mind the training from the training analysis when we prioritize the needs that we're hoping to improve. So firstly, in the short term, we were considering at the training day providing surveys to the employees to measure their engagement during the activities, to find out whether it was the training was worth their time, whether it was engaging, and whether we're ticking off the key metrics that we were intended to with the training session. And so over the long term, over the summer period, we want to see that the knowledge and skills has held and that the employees are still carrying out effective communication. So we can do that in a few ways. One area that we wanted to improve was radio communication. And we can check this by the reported radio communication error rates that have been reported to managers. Another way is for managers and team leaders to assess the staff on the job and see whether the staff is using the radio codes effectively and communicating as a team. And beyond that, we also noted that customer service was another area that we could improve upon. And we can see if this has improved from previous summer by conducting feedback surveys from customers. And in terms of qualitative data, this can be achieved by looking at holding team meetings to discuss communication issues, and we can see whether oral expression and comprehension has improved, as well as having individual check-ins between staff members and their direct manager to assess whether stress management is under control and they're running efficiently and being able to communicate over the radio efficiently with other staff members. So to conclude, we conducted a training needs analysis as we found there were some miscommunication errors over the radio, and we prioritized the needs from our task analysis and created a training program and provided some learning objectives that would hopefully carry out and improve the staff communication errors. And through its implementation and evaluation, we believe it'll be an effective program to hold for the staff to improve their communication skills. Thank you very much for listening to us today, and enjoy the listen and draw task that we have coming up for you. Thank you.